All right, time to check for the delays. Although we still have a wrap-up animation on.
And also, hello everybody.
Hello everybody. There was the black screen. Now this is good. Now, first things first. Hello everybody. How bad is the voice sync? Is it good? Is it super bad? Is it...
Superbad was a movie.
Oh, yeah. And it's used in a lot of expressions nowadays, especially with our sync sound situation.
Imagine that. How's everybody doing? Hello. Welcome back after 2 hours as promised. Decently. That's
good.
Great.
That's good. Decently.
Audio and video are synced well.
Okay. So this is a first. This like never happened before. We're going to carry on like this. And if anything occurs, Flame, you watch the chat.
Yeah, I will be all on top of it.
Yeah, okay.
And below it.
So we have episode 15, I believe. This is for the WoW wrap-up. And, well, not much has happened. Of course, we have a couple of class changes and tuning, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But for the longest time, we wanted to address a subject here. Ever since, like, the War Within started and we kind of saw, like, the reception here and there, we were kind of wondering, like, what is the actual popularity and what are the numbers for WoW?
Is WoW back? Is it back?
It's definitely back. I can tell you for sure it's back. But
spicy.
You know, since we don't really have like subscriber numbers anymore, I think that was cut off in Warlords of Draenor, if I'm not mistaken.
We did have like a kind of like a leak. What was it? A couple of months ago.
Oh, that's not a leak. It's from the game developers conference. That's gonna be public at some point. It was with John Hyde and Holly Longdale, and they were basically talking about how bad they fucked up with Shadowlands. I cannot wait to watch that once it goes public. But yeah, they showed there the fact that during Shadowlands is basically like the lowest of the lowest of the lowest in the history of low points, like under the rug situation for World of Warcraft. Yeah. So today we are going to gather up some information. We pulled some numbers out of Warcraft logs and look at
not out of our asses.
And look at a couple of things that may or may not interest you. It definitely interests us because we care about WoW. We really want it to succeed, you know, and we want a lot of players to come in.
Oh, yeah.
Because it helps out. So how to place this into context? Do you think World of Warcraft is in the best place it's ever been, numbers-wise?
I think it's in a very, very good space, numbers-wise. Just from actually getting into groups, doing content, like the actual feed that you have as a player with in-game people. I don't know what the numbers are. I actually haven't looked at all of the...
Nobody knows what the numbers are.
Yeah, but you can infer a little bit of data from the logs. I mean, we've done this in Dragonflight with Season 3, I think, when we did a red video. We looked at the parses and we noticed...
We looked, but we kind of like noted the popularity of the
it was like 3 times as high as any of the past expansions prior to Shadowlands as well.
True.
But because other than that, we don't really have any data to go on. It feels like it's populated.
The thing is, like... we have to make a huge disclaimer here. Like the numbers we're going to look at are in no way an accurate representation of what the actual numbers are. They're just ballparking on where the total number of players could be, all right? Because like there's a lot of like data from Warcraft logs, obviously. Now that doesn't mean like each and every log or each and every parse means each an individual player, okay? It just means that maybe, you know, Flame over here logged his Fire Mage 10 times, then he logged 5 times on his Paladin, so you cannot really count him as 15 unique players. However, you do tend to see some growth there, some big one, I would definitely say, as you will see in a couple of moments. But all of this like player number stuff, all of this kind of started with a tweet from Kira, the creator of Warcraft logs. This was back at the beginning of September, where he basically stated that he's pretty sure that World of Warcraft is at this point breaking record numbers in terms of player count. And this is all due to what he's getting in his influx on Warcraft logs. let's just like go right into it and see like the first tweet. And there's a lot of tweets from Kira, but this is the first one, all right? So he says, I'm going to quote him, all right? This is on September 8th. I'm fairly certain that World of Warcraft is at an all-time high player count across its entire lifetime. The number of players in China playing Wrath of the Lich King is on par with the highest retail peak we've ever seen in Warcraft Log's lifetime.
Jeez.
Then add in Season of Discovery and the War Within on top of that. Okay. So this already goes to show the key factor here is the Chinese people, because then, after Bobby left, they had a little bit of a tumble, NetEase and Blizzard, and Chinese players didn't really play too much after that, like at all.
They had a little break, a little bit of vacation.
But we all know, like WoW over there is huge. So whenever that market opens up, you can bet your ass the numbers will be boosted up. But we're not putting the total value just on Chinese players 100%, because there's also merit to be had with War Within, as we will see.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, then he went on to actually deliver some numbers, Mr. Kira. So 11 million characters with Ulduar logs in the China Wrath of the Lich King. 11 million. Do keep in mind, the biggest peak WoW had was in Wrath of the Lich King, and that was 12 million subscribers. Okay, so this only from the Chinese logs on Ulduar, right?
Okay.
From Wrath of the Lich King Classic. All right. Now, this is a tweet from last week, okay? And this is kind of bringing it back to how it is in the current day, with also adding War Within and such.
All right.
So, Classic in China, okay, here it is. Classic in China on Thursday and retail on Wednesday had comparable users on Warcraft logs.
Jesus.
Huge traffic from both games. Now, first of all, let's take all of these tidbits, the bite-sized infos, right?
It's a lot of...
And you would think, like, if it started off with 11 million logs, okay, this doesn't mean 11 million players.
It's 11 million characters.
Yeah, so it's not it's not the actual numbers, all right? But it's huge, even for Warcraft logs. Like the dude said, he's the creator of Warcraft. He said he's the biggest thing in Warcraft logs, is history, all right? And now you circle that to what happened last week when both Classic and War Within were bringing in the same traffic.
Well, you would normally triple. Well, Classic, no, but you would double that numbers.
The Classic was a much bigger deal than retail in China. So
okay,
the
Classic, I guess, includes Season of Discovery and Kata numbers, I would imagine.
Kata is not that popular. No, it's Wrath.
People still play Wrath.
Yeah, I think it's different over there. They operate on different levels over there.
That's fine.
All right, so we're looking at this information first of all, okay? And again, guys, it's not the actual numbers, but it gives you a rough picture on where we stand currently, like with the player counts. And I believe, like only based on this, but we're going to go to present day numbers from Warcraft logs to see exactly. But I believe right now, with how World of Warcraft has been like segmented up, so you have your Classic, you have your Season of Discovery, retail. Is hardcore still a thing? I'm not sure. I don't think anybody plays anymore. But there's the vanilla servers. So we have like the current World of Warcraft franchise is being segmented into multiple avenues to satisfy each player's needs or whatever. Because of that, I do believe right now, also adding the War Within's generally good reception, that WoW is at an all-time high player numbers. They will never go public with this, or maybe they talk about it in their shareholder meetings or whatever, but it definitely feels like there's a lot more folks playing, and the general sentiment is that, War Within is good.
Well, it's definitely different than the sentiment that we've had in Dragonflight, because we consider Dragonflight to be incredibly good compared to everything else, and not a lot of people agreed with that. There were like mixed feelings, because coming from the trauma of Shadowlands was deep, and now it feels like it's almost unanimous that the War Within is seen as probably like definitely way better. People probably hesitate to compare it and say it's like the best. It has a long way to go to be the best.
It is the best. I'm calling it. It's the best.
People probably think of the best with an emotional mind when they associate it with Arthas or maybe Illidan or the Burning Legion. Usually, Wrath and Legion, maybe Mop are being, shoved out
For me, it's Cataclysm and Mop. Controversial.
So people use that, but if you really think about it in the technical sense, Breath of the Lich King, the War Within is actually a really good expansion. Like technically speaking, probably definitely the best out of all. We've talked about
the
this.
the numbers should indicate that. I mean, if it was a bad expansion, you would see this also from the Chinese logs, but you don't. This is like record breaking even for them. But now I took the liberty of pulling some data out. Now, okay, guys, I didn't really like pull everything out because it's massive, but I took Mythic Nerubar Palace, okay? And these are like the smallest parses because it's really fresh still, right? Yeah. So this is from today, all right? So we have 55k parses. Not a lot.
What difficulty is this?
This is Mythic.
All right.
This is Mythic. Pay attention, Mythic. Yeah, Mythic. Okay, so Mythic is very fresh. It doesn't really have that much data on, and I only pulled out DPS. Okay, the only places I pulled out data from tanks and healers are Mythic Plus. But this I only pulled out DPS, just to make it even more controversial. So all Mythic is fresh, okay? It's still like Race 12 is still going on. Not a lot of people are parsing. We all know the drill. But still, what do we have? 2 weeks since Mythic? Or a week?
Yes, we're in the second week, right?
Okay, so we're in the second week of Mythic and we have 55k. You wouldn't be impressed by this. Fair enough. Let's go over to heroic parses. 2.9 million, baby, only from the DPS. Okay, this is a huge win in popularity for the actual raid. I feel like even for the raid tends to be good, and I feel like the general sentiment is it's a good raid, good bosses,
sure,
you know,
yeah.
pretty good pacing. Okay, maybe not everybody loves the aesthetics or you know the fact that it has a lot of bugs or spiders or whatever. Sure, but overall, in terms of like, okay, you want to have fun within the raid, pretty good, right? This is heroic. Now, let's check out normal parses, which is basically the huge crowd. 5.6 million parses. Again, only DPS. All right. I didn't put in here the tanks, the healers, just the DPS. So by these comparisons, and I couldn't like really verify how it was like 2 weeks after like Vault of the Incarnates,
sure,
or 2 weeks after what was it, Castle Nathria,
sure.
But I'm pretty sure these are at least somewhat bigger than those raids previously were, okay? Because this is looking like fantastic. Once again, I'm disclaiming this the whole time. These are not the actual player numbers, but it does show the participation. And by the way, you would think that raiding is the #1 activity, you know, in World of Warcraft, okay? But it's not. Like, you have a lot of players who do not play at all this. A lot of play delves. I would love to, for Warcraft logs, to pull out data for delves and stuff. But this is just purely from Warcraft logs and the raids. Now, we have to look at the Mythic Plus situation as well. And again, I pulled out data from all keys. This is all specs. So like all the data Warcraft logs could possibly get in the past 2 weeks. All right.
Hit me.
So Mythic Plus parses.
Jesus, that's a lot of numbers.
It's big. 7.1 million. Okay. Can you guys see it? Can you guys see it? All right. Let me try to
Holy.
try to zoom out. Zoom out even more.
7 million. Jesus.
Right. This is 2 weeks. This 2 weeks, all right? And this includes Zol. Now imagine if I would have put like tanks and healers on raids, we would have had bigger numbers. But I feel like in Mythic Plus it's much more impactful and relevant because everybody's like, you know, getting a lot more of these specs in, and it's like more rigid. But regardless, these are huge numbers, man.
7 million, dude. Fuck.
Yeah, this is present day. What I wanted to go with this is like pulling out all the numbers from today, like up until today, and then pairing it up with what Kira from Warcraft Log said. It just goes to show that either we're crazy or the game is insanely popular. And I'm talking War Within now.
So that's the thing, because we've done this before, and I was trying to get like some reference point and looking at past logs right now. I don't know if their database shifts, but right now, just looking at the previous numbers, the numbers are just like way lower, way lower.
Like way lower in what sense?
Like I don't know if like normal rates peaks over 1 million. Or 1.5 million. We have like 5 million now.
Oh, you're talking about, okay, so what
like
you're saying?
Like season 1 of Vault of the Incarnates, just looking at the overall number of logs.
Where they archive a lot of the logs, right?
Yeah,
so you have to go like full subscription mode to access all of those in the past. But I didn't really want to go like super geeky because it's an open discussion, right? I just want to pull out some data and just ballpark it and look like from a bird's eye view, right? Because it's clearly, from this at least, and once again, this is only Mythic Plus and raids. This does not count for for people who are doing delves, who are leveling like maniacs, who are doing like RP, who are doing like all of the open world stuff. There's a lot of folks that are actually doing that. Like delves were introduced exactly for those players. So I want to be solo. I don't want to have nothing to do with raiding or the social aspect, Mythic Plus, all of that. So that's not even accounting for those. And my guess is that like this on top of everything that was happening with the Chinese players, because once again, Kira mentioned that last week, both Classic and Retail were bringing in huge traffic.
These are huge numbers. One way you can say that people are playing multiple characters, so it's not like 7 million people playing, but at the same time, like you said, not everybody's
2 million. Let's just ballpark it.
We don't even have to do that. We can just admit that everybody's not logging. Everybody's playing WoW is definitely not logging, and there's a lot of people who actually don't raid or do Mythic Plus at all.
Yeah.
So we can probably take a ballpark guess, but it's definitely in the millions, and we haven't seen millions and millions.
I would say like my gut feeling based on all of this, right, is that we're within in its single form right now. It's probably looking close to like 6 or 7 actual players active right now. They will drop off.
Because for sure. It's the first month.
It always happens. Like we're still kind of almost like getting off of the peak of the expansion launch. Like it usually takes close to a month and then it trails off. And we're getting close to that month. So I'm thinking we're within currently is looking at around 6-7 million players. Okay, and I'm including this all continents, right? And Asia, Europe, Americas, all of that. But this is just we're within, right? Now, Classic is not a huge deal. I pulled out some Classic logs as well, like from Cataclysm and stuff. But those were only for like the Western audiences, and that wasn't really that impressive, like 500,000 or something like that. But the thing, what you have to realize, like in China, Classic is huge. It's huge, like big numbers. It always was. Okay.
If you put them together, it's gonna be a lot of numbers.
I think so. This is what I'm saying. This is why I placed that title like that, because if we're within has 67 million, this is my approximation, right?
Sure.
And China has to have in Classic, I mean, right now, at least the same amount.
Jesus,
we're
definitely peaking.
We're looking at past the peak of Wrath of the Lich King. Now, mind you, it's 2 different eras, right? Wrath of the Lich King was only Wrath of the Lich King. There was no Classic. There was no season of there was nothing. It was just that. Now we're looking at 4 different versions of World of Warcraft. But if you pack all of those player bases together, I strongly believe that they have surpassed the 2009 or 10 peak. It was around that year.
Yeah.
And this is like super huge. Like whatever they planned on, back in Shadowlands after the whole disaster, and they reshaped everything, and they put up a new strategy or whatever. It kind of pays out, right? It looks like it's paying out now.
It's definitely a good thing to see the results, because I mean we interact with the WoW development, and it's the way it's actually being designed in a different way. Designed. Because we talk about class design, we talk about class balance, we talk about the dev communication with the players and how they respond. And we remember back in the days of BFA when we did like a lot more videos, and we were talking about how Azerite is either overtuned or undertuned, or this spec has to play its specific Azerite traits, and this one has so bad Azerite traits that it plays the generic give me more main stat, and that's been going on for like patches and patches before anything has been done. And now we're seeing these changes on a week-to-week basis. I don't like, people give Blizzard shit, and that's fine. It goes around, but the amount, like, I don't know if people understand how active the devs are in actually obviously changing stuff, but also communicating with players. Like when did they announce, we're probably going to get to this at one point, but when did they announce the Shaman forms, the new Ascendance forms? And people were like, this is new stuff, but there was a lot of part of the community that said, dude, this is goofy. This is not.
I have made something special for that. We'll get to it. They announced it 10 days ago, the 20th anniversary thingy, and with the updated.
So not even 2 weeks, and they
close to 2 weeks.
They already changed it.
You would say 2 weeks because it's like 10 business days. Let's put it like that.
Okay. Sure, 10 business days.
But fair point. Their reaction to community feedback on some aspects of the game is really fast, as never seen before. There's still like areas where, you know, Fire Mage, I feel they took their time to address it. And there's still, like, when you go into classes, there's always going to be this. But even with this being said, if you look back at, you mentioned BFA, we can talk about Legion, we can talk about Shadowlands, fuck it, we can talk about Warlords and MoP. Dude, they never have been this fast on addressing shit that has been coming from the community. But you know why? It's not about being a bigger team. It's not about they are actually now very aware and going on forums and watching videos. It's not about that. The mindset prior to the the mindset prior to Shadowlands was, and you know this, we know better. You guys just play the game.
They've
we
learned.
make the game. We know better what's up. You don't.
That was the feeling all throughout the last couple of expansions up until Dragonflight, and you couldn't not feel that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying.
And it's not that, you know, them communicating or being more open to communication means necessarily that the game has more people. That just means that the game is being developed differently. The devs are like, okay, maybe we don't know 100% better. Because I remember some of the old Ian interviews when they talked about. I still remember to this day the Titan forging reason as to why they're keeping the Titan forging. Like he skied around the topic to try not to say the gamble because that is gambling, right? You're like flipping a coin and seeing on one of the 25 faces it can land on. That was basically Titan forging. If you don't know what Titan forging is, if you think right now the RNG of getting leech or avoidance on your stat, imagine that but for your eye level. And you would have a range of what, 20, 25 eye levels that your item can drop out. So we didn't have the Myth, Hero, Champion tracks. We just had the Titan Forging. And you looted an item and you can Titan Forge for a bunch of eye levels. And the goal was to loot that Titan Forge to the max as possible. So that was so degenerate. Yeah. That was so crazy. And we've moved around from that to, we've complained about the gearing system for expansions in a row. And now we have the not RNG, the predetermined. Can you imagine a time in Shadowlands when can we upgrade our gear? Can we use currency? And they're like, what? Currency?
Yeah, we came a long way. This is the truth. But, it's clear now, at least from, what we can speculate. Because it's all speculation. We don't have clear numbers. But it's very clear that War Within is very positively received. Because people are playing, and they're playing, I would dare to say, a lot more than at the launch of Dragonflight. Now, the question is, what has made War Within so special that all of these people came in to play? And they're not just playing delves and open world content. A lot more players are doing raids and are doing Mythic Plus as well. So all across the board, a lot more people are playing all aspects. I don't know about PvP. PvP is still a gray zone because, we're not going to touch that. But what has made this expansion so far this popular that it's bringing in this amount of popularity? What do you think?
That's a very interesting topic because
it's not delves.
We can guess, but we're not the target audience for bringing people in. We were already on board, and we could probably assume I think the new player would be so interested in this new thing, but we might also be wrong. That might not be the case.
State your mind. Just
could it have been the hype leading into it with Metzen being on stage?
Oh, you say that. I was expecting you to say that. The hype before it. Carry on.
Well, no. The thing is, with Metzen showing up, adds credibility to the expansion because a lot of people said that they don't think Dragonflight is a good game, but objectively speaking, it was a much better game than probably even Legion in terms of systems, in terms of flavor, in terms of fantasy, in terms
mechanically, of that, it was better than all of them.
That's what I mean. The technical side was definitely better, but people didn't even agree on that. Most likely, they didn't even give it a shot. What I'm saying is that Metzen probably influenced people to give it at least a shot, and they noticed, this is actually better. Now, what kept people in is probably not to do with Metzen all that much.
Well, you mentioned the hype. So, the hype was when they announced it, sure, but then it died off.
Okay.
Do you remember all of the comments we had and general feedback on our videos prior to launch? People are like, man, I don't really feel it. Man, it just feels... Sure. So, the hype wasn't really there. The hype, if you want to talk about hype, let's talk about BFA, prior BFA launch hype. Let's talk about prior Legion hype. Even goddamn Shadowlands prior hype. We made a goddamn song Talking about see you in Shadowlands. More that aged like old milk, I'm telling you. But nah, man. So the hype levels for War Within prior to the launch were not that big. They were decent, but I've seen people not being as. And I think that's a good strategy overall for Blizz, because you don't really want to hype folks that much and then just disappoint. The higher you hype, the bigger the fall will be. This was decently hype-ish.
Okay.
And it paid off because, Dragonflight had the best retention numbers, just not by grind, just by the pure sheer ease of access and clear communication on everything that's happening. Well, apart from the gearing system, that's a totally different subject. But it didn't have huge numbers coming in, but the players that did came in or came back stayed for longer. Right. And if you basically have Dragonflight added into War Within, because the same systems, and you have all of the. I don't want to say the answer because I have a big feeling on what the answer is or why War Within is this popular right now.
Give us the answer.
It's warbands, man.
Warbands.
Yes, it's warbands. You have to admit, like, you never had this feeling before in WoW. You log into a character, you level him, your first character, you level him up. Like you do a million different quests, right? Then that character, you start raiding, you start doing Mythic Plus. All of a sudden, you start getting pieces of loot that you can give to your other characters, potential other characters, right? Then you pile up this amount of loot, okay? This is a small example, a niche example, but it goes to prove a point here. Then you have 3 or 4 pieces that are warbound. Okay, you send it to, your rogue or whatever.
Sure.
You log into that rogue. First thing you see, 5% XP buff, just because you leveled one character. Then you go around the world and you see the quests you already did. It's like, oh, well, hold on. Let me check the renown. Oh, renown is already there. Let me work on a different part of the renown and do some other quests as well. And I will have all of this max level gear waiting for me already. This has never happened in the game. True. This is the aspect of warbands that, I think people neglected, just took for granted, but it goes so far away. Like, imagine when you try to do alts in Legion, basically all the expansions, even Dragonflight, because you still had to farm Marino a lot of shit. You didn't really have that starting point. So what's happening now? The War Within embraced the fact that, okay, WoW is a small and niche player base, but it's very consistent and it loves to play multiple characters.
For sure.
They embrace that. And this is the biggest win of War Within, in my opinion. I never thought about it up until today when I was doing all of the researching and work for this. But even on, I was looking on Reddit, a lot of people are detailing and praising how warbands completely changed the game for them. And I've seen people who are super grown-ups, talking about having kids and jobs and stuff, and they're saying that they cannot leave the game alone because there's this door open for them to finally have access to multiple characters and not feel like it's a chore. It feels so natural. And then I realized it was the same thing for me. After I finished up my DK and got a couple of warbound pieces, I sent a couple to my priest, leveled the priest, and there he is, all geared up, ready to do some mythic 1, 2, 3, all of that. This has never happened before. And I think once people realized this, it became, this snowball effect. It's wow is actually much more accessible for us right now, playing, different characters and stuff.
I think warbands is one of the best examples that the devs actually listen to the player base. When we've been asking for reputations to be account-wide, when we've been asking for achievements to be account-wide. And to your example, the Mount from Stone Vault quest that you can pick up if you loot it, that's a quest that you can, and it's designed for warbands, it's a quest that you can do with your whole warband. Because
again, this is crazy.
Yeah,
you can basically chop up a quest between your characters. Is that
this is if you really think about how, if you want to get geeky about it, think about how WoW does its database when it comes to collecting transmogs, collecting achievements, having quests and all of that, especially when it comes to alts. Warbands is breaking all of that. We've trashed pre-patch for being very buggy. Now, we don't know exactly why the reason is, but one of the biggest things that happened that shifted the entire database of WoW was the warbands introduction, because it was introduced in the pre-patch event, and there were so many issues with actual warband. Like the warband wasn't working at all for almost a week or whatever it was.
Problems.
Yeah, so clearly that was a big shift into how WoW handles information, how WoW handles your entire account data. And since it's working on what is it, a 20-year-old engine, and still
that was a lot of work.
Yeah,
the database work was crazy over there.
So we trash it. We trashed the pre-patch because for good reason.
Deservedly so.
But this is probably one of the reasons why it was so buggy at the time. And I do think that warbands is one of the biggest function. They're way bigger than hero talents. And in actually retaining players, I feel like it definitely answers pretty much all of the concerns of, I don't have that. Do I have time to play WoW? Am I just gonna go into a raid, do the boss once, and then just trail off and see you in the next expansion? Like, those players are probably more likely to stay now, because that progress
that goes with word of mouth as well, man.
Sure.
I mean, okay, there's obviously a small crowd or a big crowd, I don't know, but I know when I tend to recommend the game to friends of mine who have dropped it years ago. And this tends to happen with multiple people. It's like, dude, you can now play 3 characters at the same time, and it's a breeze, and it's all lovely, and it's all not gated anymore. It's not like super restricted. You don't have to grind for anything. Just play the game and get rewards. What a novel concept, right? What's
interesting, because ever since Classic was released, people have kind of compared Classic to retail, and always, you have the Classic Andes that are like, oh my god, Classic is better, and you have the retail Andes that, oh my god, retail is better. And if you really think about it, part of the reason why Classic was appreciated was, the whole concept of the world being a character in of its own. You had a different progression system. You felt like you could invest more into your character. Your decisions mattered more. There are probably a lot of reasons why Classic was better. It was not better because of the combat. It was probably not better because of the class design, although that is debatable. Like a lot of the classes right now are just functionally way better designed. But what you could essentially say about Classic is that your character mattered more, so probably you felt attached to it more because you had to invest in it. You couldn't level alts as much.
That was the whole shtick back then,
Yeah. And it was this whole back and forth between Classic and retail for the longest time, but now retail actually went 180 from that. Just went the opposite spectrum. Okay, all of you could play your entire account. It's not that, Dragonflight is a little bit alt friendly. Shadowlands lets you have some progress between. No. Everything, 99% of it is unlocked now. So I can definitely see myself as a WoW enjoyer. Dude, if I want to enjoy my character, I can play some Classic, I can progress, I can be the resto druid of my raid, going to kill the Lich King and then Deathwing and all of that. And then I can just have a totally different, still WoW experience in retail. So I feel like that freshness, instead of just being slightly different flavor of the same thing, I think that just does a lot in probably pulling people from one side to the other.
That's what I said. It's obviously there's a lot of factors why War Within is so popular and bringing in more and more players, probably more than it's ever had.
Sure.
It's a lot more factors, but I feel Warbands is the go-to because we didn't really talk about it that much. Like people just, they saw it as like, this is pretty cool, move along. But when you start to think about it,
doesn't really register until you're actually playing your main, and then you come back. Wait a minute, this is where I left off with my main.
You have to have that moment of clarity. It's like, right, I have 2-3 level 80s now, plus the fact that you get the bonus XP.
That's like, dude, how many times dude, the main concern about playing alts in WoW has always been, I don't want to do the exact same thing again.
Well, now you have the option to do whatever you want, and you get bonus XP. And this is because they filled up the world with so many things to do, story-wise, quest-wise, all of that. It's like, okay, you didn't have time to cover all ground if you were interested in it, right?
Sure.
Now you can do that. You can cover everything.
It's not even that, because I can definitely see people saying, but I still do the same thing. I still do quests, I still do dungeons, and you don't want to do that. But it's not even that. Even if you end up, because I've done everything on my mage before I level my alt, and my alt kind of does what my mage did. But it's different. The XP boost is definitely one thing.
I didn't.
Because it's faster now. So even if, let's say, I would clear the entire game with one character and anything that my alt could do is just the same thing, even then it doesn't feel like it's the same thing.
Yeah, because it's much more accelerated, first of all.
The XP bonus, the fact that that you get 5% with the first one, 10% with the second one, definitely adds a different layer of progression that you're actually... well, not only am I leveling, I'm working on making things even faster and
but there's
even better.
Also a nice reward for you at the end. because you have all that warbound gear you sent off waiting in your mailbag for
sure.
level 80. So once you do ding that alt of yours, that third or fourth alt, you already have like, maybe if you're lucky, like with your main, you should have like at least 3 or 4 pieces max gear that would potentially, ideally set you up on your end game journey. That again has never happened before.
And you know what else? And this is your personal favorite, the comparison with Diablo and Path of Exile.
Oh my god,
We've trashed WoW for being a seasonal game for a long time, and you know, this is now what Classic is, although you know, Classic's kind of running in seasons right now. And we never really liked it, and it still has some issues. You know, your gear kind of gets invalidated in the next year and so on, so it definitely feels like a seasonal game in the sense that every new season, actual season, raid tier, or whatever you want to call it, you kind of start from 0. It might not be 0 because you've, you know, in the prior tier, you've grinded items and you have some eye level, but realistically, you can start any new season with like a 0 item level character and still be able to do all of its content in like a week. So it's not, that's the seasonal part. The problem is that this has kind of felt a little bit forced and didn't feel like it found its place up until the warband section, because what we can actually do right now with our main character is something that we can do in actual seasonal RPGs like ARPGs, which are known for seasonal content and the replayability, is actually use our main to gear our alt, and that is with the warband gear. Because you think about it, and it's not just
the example.
It's not just the gear, it's also the crest discounts, it's also the currency discounts, it's also the fact everything except the actual crests and valor stones is, I think everything is transferable to your alts.
Yeah, and they did mention that this is just the beginning.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot more happening with the warbands. Of course, we can talk about, you know, War Within being this popular also because of the end game. I would say, again, the raid is pretty good.
Yeah.
As always, for an entry-level first-tier raid, I would say it's pretty awesome. I mean, subjective, but we like it.
Okay, we're talking about this. What do you think when you think of whether or not a raid is good or bad?
Well, first of all, it has to be fun. Cool mechanics. Great team. Link. It's very biased, right? But for me, it's like a link to the story. Having like interesting dialogue. I love some of the voices from those bosses over there,
for sure,
like Sakron and stuff. Like there's, it has to have character. But first off, what I'm interested in is like, you know, cool mechanics. Cool and different mechanics. Sure, we've seen, you know, familiar mechanics in the past. That's always going to be a thing. But the fact that you have a boss that you met in a dungeon, and now you meet him in the raid, which has similar mechanics to the dungeon.
And HP level adjusted where you left it in the dungeon.
Exactly. That,
because we've had that before, but this is different.
No, this is different. It felt so right. It felt so good. So it's a multiple things for me on what a raid is good. But overall, I think the general perception for the raid is decent enough.
And this is where I can chime in and add to it. Sure, that's great, but you can say that about pretty much any raid in the past. Like Battle for the Zarlor was an amazing raid with the mechanics.
But that was not the first one.
What was the first one?
It was Uldir.
Uldir. Okay, well, you can say that about Legion. Emerald Nightmare had a lot more flavor, a lot more characters. But that's fine. That's not the point. It's good. There are valid reasons for liking a raid, but we can add on top of that. First of all, we can add the fact that, you know, Dragonflight had this, but people didn't engage with Dragonflight as much. The Catalyst is a big deal when you can get your tier set a little bit quicker. The loot system is definitely improved. First of all, you have the Catalyst, which guarantees you get a tier set if you're unlucky. Like if you ever feel like, oh my god, I'm never going to get my tier set. Everybody else is getting their piece. I always lose all of my rolls. That's not going to stay true. You will eventually get your 4 set. And you're likely going to get your 4 set before you even use 4 of the charges of the Catalyst. That's besides the point. You also now have interesting raid items you can actually chase, like the super rare trinkets, super rare rings that sometimes drop, and you can get them. And those are the, oh, this item dropped for me, like the ring from Ansurek or whatever. That's higher eye level than everything else in the raid.
Like my best trinket, which I hate with a passion. the transmitter.
The transmitter, right.
Oh my god, I hate it.
That's one thing. That's on a totally different loot system. The tier tokens are a different loot system. And now you have warband gear that also can drop on top of also BOE. So you have all of these parallel loot tables that don't interfere with each other. And this adds a different aspect to loot and how you see it when you go into a raid, because you never go like the old raids were good raids, but the loot system was shit. This boss is gonna drop 4 items and I may be one of the 20 people that's gonna get one of those items, right? You could do a math and you can say, well, there's 8 bosses in a raid times 4 divided by the number of players, I can maybe get 2 items or
Definitely
1 item per week, right?
Yes.
But now there's so many other layers and a bunch of them is personal, like the warband gear is, nobody can take that away, you don't have to roll for it, that is your loot. You can keep it, you can give it to your alts.
It's great.
The fact that you can progress with your character in a raid and it's like, oh, now I can gear my paladin and I'm playing my mage. That is
great
a cool
feeling.
feeling. Never has that happened before. And obviously this applies to Mythic Plus as well, but we're talking about endgame, we're talking about raids.
Yeah, this was the raid subject, because it's definitely good. And sure, yeah, the catalyst, all of the gearing, super big system is way better, probably better than it has ever been. Sure, we can talk about the convoluted cresting and upgrading and all of that. I think that still could be iterated on and make it much more streamlined. But then again, it's nitpicking at this point also. Rating is one thing, but I think the dungeons overall are pretty good. The season started, we did Mythic Plus.
For sure.
We were afraid of, because what went down in the beta. I mean, but if
you think about it, if any season of Mythic Plus had the most chances to fail, it was probably this one, because of the overall. It didn't fail. But what I mean is, the tuning was so awful, and it was pretty much unanimous across the board. There's two types of people that play WoW. There's people from this point of view. There's people who watch content and people who don't watch content at all. People who don't watch content, they don't care. They just log in and they just they don't know anything, and that's fine. And they just play the game, and that's great. But there's also people who actually watch the content. You could argue that those are the loyal players, more likely to stick around.
Yeah.
And you can probably assume that most of them were demoralized with the Mythic Plus, because everybody was complaining. Terrible.
Yes.
Not only that, the Mythic season also brings back to Shadowlands Dungeon. Nobody wants to be reminded.
Oh, nobody was ready for Shadowlands Dungeon.
That's also a thing. It also brought back Grim Batol, which is my personal favorite dungeon, but it comes also from an expansion where it was one of the most, from what I understood, one of the most hated dungeons in Cataclysm, because it's very linear.
I hated it.
Yeah, see, it's very long. And in Cataclysm, it was very difficult. It's like leveling through Cata dungeons. If you always hoped you wouldn't go into Grim Batol when you queued for dungeons. That was the one. But
it made sense.
Yeah, so you had that. You had 2 Shadowlands dungeons. You had controversial dungeons like Dawnbreaker was like, oh my god, I don't want to do this. It's so buggy. All my pets are flying off the ship. All of that. You had what I'm trying to say is that this season had so many reasons to fail,
yeah,
and still it
worked
didn't.
out.
It's most popular Mythic Plus season of all time.
7.1 million parses just to prove that.
In just 2 weeks.
You're talking about today. I edited the tier list video that's coming out tomorrow, and I took footage from the beta, and I watched the wipe fests on +3s and 4s, because like the hits,
the 2-hour +3 Dawnbreaker.
Yeah. So to your point, we still have the proof that it was bound to fail. Sure, it's not perfect, but in all honesty, it's going great. And we did our fair share of Mythic Plus last week, starting off this week as well. It's more or less the same gameplay loop. However, now it's tyrannical and fortified. No stress with the.
There's also that the affixes when it comes to Mythic Plus.
Yes,
the fact that the rotation is different. If you're probably most people are gonna do Mythic Zeros, maybe +2, maybe +3, maybe +4. Like majority of people don't play Mythic Plus. They don't level. And even if they do, there's like 1% of people will probably do over 15s or do 15s. Less than 10% is gonna do 10 plus 10s.
I don't think there's a log of a 15 yet. So
no, not yet. But I mean, from past data, we've had aggregated data analysis from Radar.io that actually, said the old +20s were like 0.3% of players did that, or the title is basically 0.1%. But now there's no more. Oh, what week is next? Oh, that feeling is gone. Every week
push weeks and shit.
Yeah. We have the Xalatat affix that rotates around, but that's not even close. Fine, man. It's not sanguine. It's not necrotic, and that gives you a buff.
Right now you have the balls coming in through. You just make sure you collect the balls, and it's all good. It's nothing like super.
That's the difference,
depraved.
right? People don't have if you can call it M plus anxiety. Oh my God, this week I
don't think so.
They don't have the I have to do my keys, but this week it sucks, man. You have that affix combination. There's no more of that. And so it's just, I'm just gonna do more Mythic Plus. What's next week? Doesn't matter. It's Mythic Plus. It's just gonna be good.
Exactly.
Maybe we'll get bored at some time for the lack of diversity. There's still some diversity there, but we're not there yet.
No, it's it's the raid, it's Mythic Plus, but it's also the delves. On the last video we did about delves and stuff, the amount of people who like just came out and say, listen, man, I don't play Mythic Plus, I don't play raid. Delves has been a blessing for me. I am able to like progress my character and do all of the stuff closely, similarly to what you guys are doing. I believe that is also a huge win. And this does not account for all of the parses and numbers we've seen, but I think this is like this quote unquote silent crowd, which is getting bigger and bigger. And I think this has drawn, again, word of mouth, video content on, streaming or whatever. So this has been, let out into the world, not only between like a couple of players, but, genuinely folks who are actually enjoying delves for what they are. And I think that's another big win. I think they finally found the solution for people who do not want to group up.
Like people don't realize, we don't usually talk about those types of players that, the silent crowd, they probably don't even watch our videos. They don't even know YouTube does WoW content. But you have to realize that pretty much maybe the majority of the WoW player base wants gear. That's the purpose of playing an RPG. That's the purpose of playing you want to get
down to
gear.
it, you want gear.
And the fact that now the raids have 4 different tiers and of difficulty, and then the gear Mythic Plus ranges from like a gazillion types of gear. The fact that with delves you can get hero track gear, which is, we're not going to talk about eye levels, but we can talk about hero track gear. Hero track gear is essentially the gear that we use to do mythic raiding in. So we
start mythic raiding with that, basically.
Yeah, but it's the gear that enables us to do the hardest content, right? Yeah. Most people, like the Race World First people, don't have, I don't know if they have myth track gear. Maybe some of them have some myth track items, but
not yet. But they're
now as they're progressing, so that gear essentially enables you to do the hardest content in the game. You don't need myth track. That makes it better. But now what the delves player can feel is like, by just playing the delves, I can get almost the best gear in the game. I don't have to schedule myself with 19 other people to do a raid, whether it's normal or heroic. It would have to be heroic, because if you really think about it, delves enable you to get heroic type gear. Now, I don't know what, like, if a lot of people still raid heroic and never raid mythic. I imagine that they are definitely more than mythic players, but we were heroic raiders at one point, and we struggled, progressing through heroic bosses, getting ahead of the curve.
That was our shtick back then when we did heroic.
Even that player base is smaller than the normal raiding player base, but now you can gain access to that level of rewards for your character without actually engaging in all of the little jumpy loops that you have to do to get that level of gear.
It's definitely another win, and we're like pinpointing like the factors for why the war within is pulling in so many numbers. There's also professions. I feel like we haven't really addressed this, but I feel this another win for professions. Well, it was kind of a win in Dragonflight. I think the biggest thing that they added was with the work orders, and you basically having
the NPCs.
And having the option to like get some progression for your profession. And the biggest win was in Dragonflight when you had like professions mattered again. Like for me, like my best weapon right now is my crafted weapon, right? Which I'm going to craft this week, hopefully.
Okay.
All right. So it's my best weapon, dude. Like I have no weapon to like
even at an eye level loss.
Not an eye level loss, but I have to like make it like,
It's gonna be 536, I guess, right? And 539, 639 is gonna be the max.
So that's what I'm saying, and I think for a lot of people, like with the embellishments and stuff, there's the impact that also had, because for the longest time professions were shit and meaningless in WoW unless you really want to like geek out and make gold and stuff. But in terms of like getting some gear or having some impact on your character RPG wise, they were never a thing.
Dude, I don't remember, like the last time this was impactful was probably Burning Crusade, man. When
I don't remember either.
Weaponsmiths and armorsmiths where you could actually craft epic items that you would need to progress in a raid with.
You would still craft, gems and all of that. So those consumables, all of that, all were a thing. But there was like niche, right? Not all professions had this impact somewhere. Or
For
now
the
it
longest
feels
time, professions were there to like, I just couldn't loot this one item piece. I'm just gonna craft it until I loot this one item piece. But now you're actually getting bis items from professions.
And this is the thing, right? It's a small one, but a lot of small details tend to like make War Within one of the best yet.
because they're good details and they're not little bumps in the road.
Yeah.
So instead of them being little rocks that you constantly stumble against, I hate
Pebbles.
this one thing again. They're actually things that pull you into the game instead of just piling up. Because you could say that WoW had a lot of issues in the past, but no single issue was enough to take a player away from the game. But add them all on top, that probably would take a player away. But now those are no longer issues. Those are like positive things. That
Exactly. And you know what? Just realize this. We're only 1 month into the game. I mean, sure, we can, maybe if you want, we can still make the argument of the honeymoon period, but it's like 1 month. We have like 2 weeks of season starting. Where do you think this can go? I mean, listen, traditionally for Blizzard, it's only way down from here, right?
Yeah, I don't want to think. So it's interesting that you say that because you are in the honeymoon phase. I've been playing the beta every week for like 5 months.
And how do you feel? Does it feel?
No, like
No.
Obviously, the actual game release is better than the beta fit. But I've been, playing the classes, playing the hero talents, playing the dungeons, playing a little bit of the raid too, and leveling through the zones for months. So a big part of the game wasn't new for me anymore. So you could say that my honeymoon phase might not be as honeymoony as it is for most
prematurely people. Ended.
And I'm still like, I cannot wait to log back in, man.
Yeah, it's still, that feeling is amazing. And I think a lot of people forgot how that feeling was. I know we had for the longest time. But regardless, it's only a month within the War Within. We have like everything on the table right now. We are awaiting for 11.1.5, which will be the anniversary patch, which again is a big W.
We can make a video or a whole topic just about that, like how much. I mean, obviously it's a big anniversary, it's a 20-year, but we could say the same about the 10-year anniversary, which was like very, very differently designed.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, I remember it because it was going back to Molten Core. Yeah, it was in WoW.
Oh yeah, I remember. I had that mount.
You got it like a little fiery crowd.
I remember.
And that was about it. Compare that to the anniversary event that we have now. This anniversary event really feels like it's celebrating Warcraft.
It's huge, yeah. But what comes after that? This is my thing, right? So it's all like overall a couple of L's, but mostly big W's. What comes in 11.1?
Dude,
what is happening?
I'm still, there's a part of me that's still afraid to hope, because if you really think about it, ever since the release of Dragonflight, whether you like to admit it or not, everything was better than the thing before it.
Well, okay, you say that, but
with the exception of Aberrus.
Yeah, I was going there because.
But if you really think about it,
Aberrus was a fine raid. I didn't really like the.
It came with augmentation, which is a sensitive topic, but it's a new spec in the middle of an.
I was fine with augmentation. I was fine. The fact that it's Slinky Link with the lizard.
Slinky Dinky.
I didn't like that. But listen, the raid was fine. I liked the raid. I liked that was when Red Paladin was
also
reworked.
Aberrus was when we had the gearing. Change.
Yes. See, that was one thing I didn't really like. I think I stand my ground. I think they convoluted the gearing system. That's when it started.
Although we don't like it, they did improve it.
They did improve it.
Most people actually like it right now.
I agree. But the biggest drawback for me back then, that was like what, 10.1? I think
10.1,
yeah. Okay, the biggest drawback was Zarlek Caverns. I hated that zone. I was like sort of like okay with it at the beginning, but it felt so tiring. And the mole people, I didn't really care for those.
Okay, we can definitely. I kind of agree with the same thing, but you have to appreciate what Zarlek Cavern actually did is added new technology of phasing when you go into underneath the ground, and they definitely have used that. Zarlek was this is why we have Hallowfall, why we have Ringing Deeps, and why we have Ashkahed.
Well, this is different. Okay,
but obviously, but it's better. But this is because they had Zarlek to work on. Because if your PC is shit, you'll still get the loading screen if you fly from Dornogal. Because I got it a couple of times when it was overloaded. I still got a loading screen going into Ringing Deeps by flying. Okay. But Zarlek essentially added the possibility of them doing layered zones underneath, and you could just fly.
But then 10.2 came around with a Midrasel, and I loved it. I loved the zone. I loved the events. Emerald Dream, not a Nightmare.
Emerald Dream. True.
Yes. The raid was awesome as well. Overall, so it felt way better because it was a lot more open, a lot more lighted, a lot more diverse.
It was expected contrast. It was a pleasant contrast.
Yes. So in a sense, yeah, they kind of like did better and better by patch. I felt like 10.1, although it was packed with content, it did have a couple of drawbacks. But this is like very biased, very personal. It may have not been the same for everybody. For sure. I just feel they were a little bit maybe too confident with what they were planning ahead. Circling back to what you said earlier, now looking towards the future, 11.1 could be that, you know, because they are replying and responding to feedback as often, maybe 11.1 will be quite the, I don't know, advancement.
You know what's actually exciting right now? Now that I'm
Your
thinking
mom?
about
What?
this, always, but I don't know what they're gonna do. And we know the next
We're gonna have PTR, man. Relax.
Yeah,
We're gonna have
no,
PTR.
but I'm not talking about that. What is the next step in the story? In BFA, you could probably have guessed, right? There's tensions building between the Alliance and Horde. Maybe we're gonna raid Zuldazar. You could have probably guessed that. You could have probably guessed that in Shadowlands. So second patch, we're probably going to do something with the Maw because the story's building up there, right? And now we know the next 2 expansions in a row. Like, we don't, like, what is next? We've defeated the Nerubians. What content are we going to do next?
Yeah, I'm also curious, and we'll probably get a announcement, probably like video, like how they did. I don't know if there's like any other event they will.
Probably after the anniversary, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I think one of the best ways they could do it, well, not the best, because they're probably going to do it online, so it's not going to be like an event, but I'm sure it's going to be somewhere around the holiday season. So just get everybody pumped up, because you know when you have like a huge announcement, like announcement of 11.1, the story, the systems, the updates, the blah blah blah, all of that shit, right? You get people hyped up once again. Even those who are not playing, it's like, oh my god, let me pick up that axe again, getting ready for that 11.1, baby, let's go.
It's definitely interesting because we know that WoW has released on November the 23rd, 2004. It was 24th or 26th? 23rd. So you can, you know, take an educated guess and say that maybe the anniversary event is going to be around that time. So
it's kind of been determined. It's kind of been determined already that at least in the calendar from the PTR, it starts on the 22nd of October and it will last up until January, I believe.
Yeah. So
you're gonna have a lot of time with it.
But there's a lot of events, a lot of things that you could do. Definitely taking us through the holidays, and it's likely that the next patch is gonna hit somewhere.
Well, you're gonna have the 11.1.5 patch, you know, to keep you busy. On top of like, oh, the season's still going on, blah blah blah, right? But if you add on top of that a huge announcement on 11.1, well, you're gonna be excited.
The Christmas is coming.
Yeah, you're gonna want to play WoW.
We don't even know
still.
if we're gonna have an 11.07. Look at how big a 05 patch is.
Yeah, well, it's coinciding that it's the anniversary patch, but we already know that they tend to do a lot of
but
things.
they've done 05 patches. They've done class reworks in Dragonflight.
Exactly.
They reworked Paladin. They've added the devastation, like augmentation rather, a whole new spec in a 0.5 patch.
Exactly. Yeah. So the future is looking bright. I would say we are. You know, you can call it cope, you can call it whatever, but so far so good. I think the game is in a very good state. The numbers prove it. Our general sentiment prove it. We cannot wait to log back in and do stuff within the game. And like just by in our own little world and looking at, you know, what people are saying and discussing and whatever, it seems that it's also pretty good, pretty positive. So hopes are up for what is to come. Now, how about what?
No, I was gonna say it definitely feels like WoW again.
All right. Now, how about that Shaman, huh?
Oh my god, because this actually ties into what we've discussed about earlier, where the devs are actually paying attention and communicating with people. Do we have the original Ascendance?
Of course we do, but we're not going to look at that first.
The spiky ones.
Yeah, we're going to look at those as well.
Okay, then my point is not made.
So, obviously they listen to the feedback and mixed reactions, I would say, to that. I mean, Mokti loved that.
But his tastes are debatable.
But no, he's not normal. So first of all, you know, he needs to be, you know, institutionalized or something. That's fine. But people loved it. People hated it. It was very mixed. Okay,
I feel like people mostly loved it because it was just something different and upraised.
Yeah. Okay. But I think now it's a big improvement. But what they did, this is like, I think the first time they ever did this. So you go for the new Ascendance visual.
Yeah.
And there's also a glyph that enables, so you have the new one and you have like a glyph for the old one. If you want to keep the hairy one, the trolls one, as I would call it, you know, the little troll toys. You'll see.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah, sure. He doesn't know, but he'll know. All right. So let's check out what they did with this, because I recorded this on. Hold on. Let me mute this. So this is how it looks. It's for Elemental, I believe. Like when you pop Ascendance, look at that beauty. Look at that. Hoping I'm zooming in. Yeah, look at that. I mean, it's way better than...
It looks like an ascendant form.
Exactly. It looks... And this is the fire team, right? This is for elemental.
Yeah.
Okay, so I only recorded this one just to have some sort of like visual representation within the game. But we can look at the pictures here. So this is for restoration. This is water themed. Okay, let me zoom in on
Little
this.
splashy splash.
I mean, look at the details,
It's
man.
so good,
Look at, and I like from the face to the armor details to everything in between. It just looks shamany.
It's such a cool set of armor, man.
I mean, at this point, you cannot ask for this to be in the game as an armor because it would really like
it
mess
would take
up.
away from what this form is. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But resto definitely with the water team. Now, enhancement is with the air team. And I don't know if you can see the details. Well, it's pretty hard to see on the wow head thing here. But underneath is like small blue sparkles of water. On the enhancement, you can see the air.
Oh, that looks so good.
Look at that. And there's also like lightning coming out. But obviously, they couldn't like capture everything within it. So if you're an enhancement enjoyer, I mean,
this
come
just
on.
takes it to a whole new level.
Look at it.
And you mentioned the glyphs. This is so cool because this could mean two big things. First of all, whenever there's a visual upgrade, we're not forced to use the new one. I mean, we know. I don't know how quickly they've added the Paladin Wings glyph after they released the new animation, but now not only did they give us a new form and they said, oh, you don't like this? Okay, how about this one? Oh, but you can keep all three. So that is a big upgrade in the way that they're approaching visuals, because that could mean the second thing, which is how many more visual upgrades can we have for things that we get to choose? What visual upgrades
we can hope now. We can hope now because there's a lot
of skins. Spell skins.
They have been doing quite a lot of work on this department. You can clearly see it with the Dark Ranger animations and the whole Sylvanas vibe. Now with the Ascendance animation as well. So it's bound to happen. Now this is the old one, so we have to look at it with the fire. Okay, so
so the new ones are cooler, but this is more visually impactful.
Yeah, it definitely takes your eye. Like when somebody looks like that, you know shit is about to go down.
You're playing your characters and then you're like.
I mean, when we saw it, when they first announced the 20th anniversary trailer or whatever, and we first saw this, we were pretty. We shocked. It's like, whoa.
Okay, that's exactly it, because the design of it is wow. This is so cool.
Yeah.
If you put it into Shaman context, like, okay, the hair doesn't really say anything shamany. Sure.
Super Saiyan.
Yeah, it's Dragon Ball-ish, but that's fine. It's disco Afro stuff. That's really cool. But it's good to have visuals, and I'm curious to see. What I want to see is whenever we do our Saturday raids and we get like everybody playing the Shaman, who uses what.
Yeah, this is gonna be. We're gonna have.
We got all that hair going all over the place.
So yeah, this is the elemental with the fire theme, enhancement once again with the air. So this is
so much hair, dude.
Yeah, but it's still like the same theme. You can look at like at the back of it, you can see the air flowing around like cloudy, So it definitely maintains it. I'm sure people will dig it, and once again, this is still available, guys. So you can still use the glyph for this. I tried to make the glyph on the PTR. It's not available because I really wanted to like showcase both of them.
All right.
And this is the resto one. This is the water team. You obviously because of the blue hair.
Sure.
Same looking texture, whatever, just different colors.
And you know what's cool? Because I don't think the original Ascendance has this, but now you actually can discern female and male body types. Because you have pretty cool. This is the female version.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Now, this as well. Now, when I first saw this, of course, you would think about, Super Saiyan or whatever. But my first impression was this.
Of course. Oh, I remember these.
The baby trolls. Like, I was like, work of art over here, ladies and gentlemen. So, I had fun with it.
Rest of that's elemental. That has to be a thumbnail.
I mean, it's still available, right? But this was my okay. It was shocking, but then immediately I thought about the troll.
It's flashy. You notice it.
Yeah, ascendance. This is it. It's crazy, man. But I'm happy they give the options for people to go for both.
Sure.
You want to go with the big hairy stuff, Super Saiyan or troll baby,
troll baby.
do your thing, I think for my Shaman, I'm gonna keep the new one because I find it super thematic, super cool. And with that, I think we can close it. Oh, by the way, Flame is a little bit stressed out because he has to catch an airplane. Tonight.
A little bit.
Yeah, Flame is going to the 20th anniversary concert in Switzerland. Graciously invited by Blizzard, and he has to fly tonight. So we're trying to like keep it a little bit short.
In a couple of hours.
Yeah, okay. Trying to keep it a little bit short so he doesn't miss his flight. So he gets to sleep and also not miss his flight. But I think we like covered like everything that we
touched the big parts.
Yeah, we're not going into class changes again this time around, just because last time we did it was all fine and dandy. But like when we were trying to do videos out of them, they felt like they were super late, right? So they announced class changes, let's say on today or yesterday. That's fine. We do it on the show. It's fresh. It's neat. Like by the time we get to post those in either the clips channel or even on the main channel, they're like too late.
We went through those on stream today. I wasn't sure exactly if we're going to talk about it, so I didn't, spend too much time on it. But we went through the class changes, and a lot of people are obviously, very emotionally invested into it, and especially with the Fury Warrior nerfs. Like we've had people in chat comments like, "Oh, what about the Fury Warrior nerfs?" Even though the stream was Hunter themed.
Because Warrior has been like Warrior and Arcane were like, and Arcane got its fair share. So it was bound to happen. I'm pretty sure like when you see a spec overperforming that much, Fury Warrior needs to have its time in the sun. I agree.
Yeah,
okay.
It's fine. I wasn't necessarily bothered by the Fury nerfs because if you the problem was with Fury doing a lot of damage in raids and AoE is mostly on the ad fights. If you really look at pure single target fights, Fury is just terrible. And a lot of
dude, come on, let's be real. This raid, apart from 2 bosses, is cleave and AoE.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Actually, Fury is not good on cleave. That's arms. That's
Frost Decay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But like
Fury is
cleave
only
in the
really
sense that
good.
you have more than 3 targets. Okay, so
I'm not saying that Fury is a bad spec. I'm saying that
the raid is very good for it.
It has niches, and I think that's fine. Where we can have niches where it can be really good on Ansarek, on Ovinax, and I think it might have been good on the first boss because you have those odds spawn. The problem is that Fury just has a lot of upfront burst, and we've had that before, but it doesn't really translate that well into Mythic Plus either. So it's not like it's overpowered. It's fine. We can have it nerfed, but it's also not as bad as people think. I think the latest nerfs have accumulated to about a 4% overall loss in damage in Mythic Plus, which is kind of like nothing. You're still going to be doing really well. Probably people are affected by the fact that it's AoE capped. But it's fine. Things are going to go back and forth for a long time. We've done like the reason why we probably won't do them as much anymore is because we did the Fire Mage last week.
Yep.
And after we did
that was
it was another set of buffs.
We're happy that they're doing
for sure.
Class changes and tuning this fast around, but basically it kind of like kills off anything we try to like pre-plan because it's like out of date information at some point. So yeah. Do we have any comments?
We have a couple of. So normally at the end of the show, if it's the first time that you're here, we normally have a chat with you guys. If you have any questions that you want to get into, have a little topic discussion, we can do that a couple of minutes at the end of the show. We have a few comments from. We were talking about. The player base for War Within. We have
I cannot see.
That's you with like 15 H's. Actually came back because of PvP rated Battleground Blitz. There are dozens like me. Yeah, for sure.
A lot of people praise that actually.
Yeah.
A lot of people praise that. So that might be a W for PvP. But
I mean, it's definitely, and if you think about it, Battlegrounds have been something that a lot of PvP players enjoyed. I mean,
I used to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
It was the thing.
But the barrier of entry for rated Battlegrounds has been very high and has been very demotivating for people who don't regularly just PvP like us, and we never really got into it. Like the closest we've ever gotten was Shadowlands Season 1 when just PvP gear was OP and everybody was doing PvP at the time for like a couple of months.
We did more arenas in BFA actually.
Yeah, but I mean the entire player base played a lot of PvP, even non-PvP players played PvP.
Yes, but we know why. We know it wasn't like that arenas were super good.
Even that barely kept people playing PvP. So Battleground Blitz is definitely a very good feature. Once again, devs listening to people is like, I cannot find queues, I cannot do guilds or whatever it is, get into the content. They're just lowering the barrier of entry.
Speaking of Battlegrounds, did you know that I used to do rated Battlegrounds and I was the raid leader of a rated Battleground team back in Cataclysm and MOP, I believe. That's how I met Mokte. And I got, I think, 2,100 rating, and I got my commander title. I wear it proudly. Just a nugget of information.
That's
I used to PvP a lot.
I miss Battlegrounds so much.
Rated Battlegrounds back then were pretty awesome. It was pretty awesome, like organizing the team and having strategies. It was different than raid leading, like looking at people who do raid lead and stuff, because this involved actual combat strategy organizing people. Yeah, it was beautiful. It's fucked up now, but it was really awesome. It was really awesome back then.
No hope, no chance. Yeah, okay,
it was good times.
We have another mention from Stan.
Stan, hey!
An alt in Shadowlands was like a second job when we talked about the warbands.
Oh, for sure, yeah, totally. I mean, second job on top of your main job and your extra overtime.
And not even in Shadowlands, because people compare, people use Shadowlands as a bad example, like a go-to for bad examples. But you don't even have to go there, especially for alts. We can talk about Legion. Because people forgot that you had the weapon progress system that was only spec based.
And the legendary farming, my God.
That also, but we're not even talking about alts as in different characters. We're talking about off specs as different characters.
Yeah. Legion was like the hardest and the most grindiest out of them all if you wanted that, especially at the beginning. You better not play a different spec. So oh my God.
We're talking about Legion, an expansion that is overall viewed very fondly by a lot of the people.
People forget the bad stuff.
Yeah. They only remember the tail end of the expansion where, okay, let's make the progression a little bit more class-wide. Let's make the progress with the catch-up and all of that stuff, right? After the complaints. Legion was very crucial into making, alt friendliness that we have today. Legion and a bunch of other expansions.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember the times. Like, I wanted to play Holy Paladin, get the fuck out.
Oh, we have a comment from Arja when it comes to professions. Dungeon buffs or abilities from professions have been nice. Stun in Arakara that tailors can do, or haste buff from the cooks in Cindermead.
True, dude. True.
Oh my God.
That's great that they implemented that. They started off in Dragonflight, I believe, with those.
With the mining in Uldaman.
Mining in Uldaman, you had the.
Well, we had it in Legion with Court of Stars. If you remember.
I don't remember that.
That was and we played it in the first season of Dragonflight, and you had to go to Tiller.
Oh, right. Okay, but they really pushed it on in Dragonflight and went all out in the War Within. So definitely huge plus on the profession side. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and it's a good thing. I'm obviously a tailor, and whenever I go to Arakara, I was like, oh my God, I can actually do a pretty cool thing. I can just stun a big lieutenant mob for 20 seconds or however long it lasts. That is really
very useful indeed.
And it adds, a little bit of value and a little bit of, engagement with the profession. It's like, oh, I am this profession. I know that blacksmithing has a bunch of stuff. Maybe
in Stonevault,
yeah,
there's a buff you get. So
it's good. It's really great.
I love it. I love it. It's a very good point. Thanks for pointing it out. Our job.
Okay. Well, it's. I think that's pretty much it. We've covered most things. We're probably gonna keep our eyes peeled for more new cool WoW stuff to come in the next couple of days.
I mean, whenever there's happenings, they're gonna be covered in the wrap-up show. But I feel like I really had a fire under my ass talking about the player count and try to figure out why is it this popular right now, as in comparison to other expansions, right?
People lost contact with the player numbers ever since they've stopped doing it publicly,
and I think people also lost faith in this game.
For sure,
and they kind of getting it back bit by bit.
It's a long road. And people are kind of entitled to that loss of faith. But now you see the lights come back.
It's good. All right, well, let's wrap it up because that's how we do. Thank you everybody for joining, for commenting. Thank you Arja for delivering the comments, being on top of it all. And we shall catch you next Thursday with wrap up. Tomorrow there's not going to be any stream, nor on Saturday because he's going to be gone.
I'm going to be bye-bye.
So next Thursday, 10 a.m. PST, 7 p.m. CET. That's it.
Well, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. I have buttons. And do like this.
I'm now massaging my nipples.
Bye, everyone.